Hey, Rackets, Mrs. Wilkenbush, continuing our book club study of Masterminds by Gordon Korman. We are on chapter 16 today. Gosh, we just are flying through this. I don't know about you guys, but this is getting really good. I'm kind of on the edge of my seat. I hope you are too, but don't fall off. Here we go. Chapter 16, Eli Frieden. You can take me out of the plastic works, but you can't take the plastic works out of me. The conference room is still with me. The whiteboards are burned onto my retinas so that I'm looking at them night and day, regardless of whether my eyes are closed or open. Or Serious 1, Eli Frieden. I'm not the only one still reeling from our mission to the factory. The simple process of describing it to Malik on the way home from the factory was almost as harrowing as living it through it the first time. In a way, it was worse. What we found was so bizarre that it was almost like a movie plot. Telling it to another person made it real. And when we finally split up to go our separate homes and that very early morning, we were in a daze. We discovered something momentous about ourselves. But what did it mean? Even now that I had time to think it over, I'm no closer to an answer. True, we learned a lot. The factory is a sham. The news and information we get is carefully screened and edited. The purple people eaters are spying on the town. Weirdest of all, 11 of us. But for some reason, not everybody are being studied and always have been. I ran my mind over the names. What's different about us? Why me and not Randy? Why Hector and not Stanley? Why Tori and not Melissa? Special. That was the word Randy used. Okay, I'm special. But what's so unspecial about him? 2 observations. The special 11 have no siblings. We're only children. 2. All of us are between the ages of 11 and 13. It doesn't say much. 3 of the unspecial group are also only children, and nearly half of them fall into our age range. So my observations are probably worthless. Every day after school, I meet with Malik, Tori, and Hector. We go over the pictures on my iPad in an attempt to understand what we saw in the conference room. It's hard to make out all of what's on the whiteboards. We have to zoom in on one section at a time to blow up the writing. It's not a perfect system, but the words get fuzzier as they get bigger, so there's still a lot we can't read. Bottom line, we knew we were being watched, but we had no idea of the extent of it. Our whiteboards contain accounts of temper tantrums we threw as toddlers and details of how pleased or disappointed we were with Christmas and birthday presents we received when we were barely older than that. The monitoring is even more intense at school, where hidden surveillance cameras record everything we do, even the desserts we take on the honor system after lunch. "Aw, come on," exclaims Malik, the undisputed dessert boasting champion. "There's no way I took 581 cookies. "Cameras don't lie," Malik grins Hector. "You're not so perfect yourself, man," Malik retorts. "Or should I say cheater? That's what it says on your whiteboard." "I didn't cheat," Hector contends. "I didn't stop you from cheating off me. It's a totally different thing." "So what's this about, huh?" "Failure to report grade inflation." "That's all you, man." "It's not my fault Mrs. Laska marked up some of my tests wrong," Hector defends himself. "Yeah," his best friend challenges, "but you didn't exactly break your neck to tell your score was too high." "If she's such a good teacher, she should be able to add." "That's not it," Tori puts in thoughtfully. "Mrs. Laska must have known the grades were too high. Otherwise, how could she make a note that you didn't come forward to correct your score?" "Well, that's even stupider than counting people's cookies," Malik scoffs. "Why would a teacher give you the wrong grade on purpose?" "They're testing us," I conclude. "Like when you get an extra large horseshoe on Serenity Day, do you turn it in for the normal sized one? They're trying to see how honest we are, or how honest we aren't," I add with a pointed look at Malik. "It's just cookies," Malik pleads. "It's not like I tried to rip off the previous Serenity Cup." "But just in case, they've got a camera on that too," Tori reminds us. "For all we know, that's another test." But why should we care, Hector wonders. When you think about it, I muse, all these things are tests of character. Are we honest or not? How to react to disappointment? Look at the stuff on water polo. It isn't who scores goals or wins games, who's the good player and who's so-so. It's all about who's aggressive, who uses the ball as a weapon, who's willing to do anything to win. Do all towns keep this kind of information on their kids, Hector wonders? No way, Malik says stoutly. Even here they don't keep tabs on everybody. Just 11 of us. The Osiris people, they must make us special. Osiris is the Egyptian god of afterlife, I tell him. Most of his stories are about dying or getting reborn or coming back from the underworld. I usually ask my dad or Mrs. Laska about this kind of stuff. I'm not asking this time. We pore over every inch of the whiteboards, and it's just more of the same. Details upon details. Our whole lives broken down into hundreds of mini tests. The pictures of the conference room table are even less helpful. Glare from the fluorescent lighting and the glass surface make the papers almost unreadable. The clearest thing we can pull from it is more of a word puzzle than a sentence. The document looks important, with photographs and headings in bold. The pictures are nothing but blobs, and after over an hour trying to read the headline, the best we can come up with is Aruth Woof Jin. Well, that explains everything, Malik says bitterly. Could it be a code, Hector muses. I doubt it, I tell him. Everything else is in plain English. We're just missing too many letters. There's no Osiris in there, Tori observes, or Serenity. It could be a person's name, Hector suggests. Arthur somebody. Or Martha, Tori adds. The first word could be also Earth, Malik points out sarcastically. That's why we're special. We're aliens. Mystery solved. My dad wears those bow ties to communicate with the mothership up there in the orbit. It's no joke, Malik, I cut off. We're talking about our lives, and this could be a big part of it. Well, it would help if we knew what the paper was supposed to be, Malik returns. Why didn't you bother to figure it out when you were looking at Why didn't you bother to figure out what you were looking at instead of just snapping pictures of everything? Tori is patient. We don't have time. There was a purple coming down the stairs. I stare at the letters, expecting the blanks to fill in and reveal the truth about 11 special people. Lying in bed that night, I'm staring when my iPad runs out of power and goes dark. After Tuesday night's 3-hour ordeal, I'm not relishing the thought of sneaking out to the Plastic Works just to hook up their Wi-Fi. I remember the time we were able to connect just outside the gate at the base of the Fellowship Hill. I can't very well hang out there with my iPad, not without attracting attention of the purples. But maybe there's another spot, just beyond the property, where I can look like I'm studying, yet still piggybacking the signal leaking through the factory walls. I head over there Friday afternoon, tracing the perimeter fence, watching my tablet for a Wi-Fi indicator. When I see it, I retreat a few paces to the place where I can sit on the grass and lean against a tree. The signal's still there. Perfect. I've got my backpack with me, so I spread a few books around. If anybody sees me, they think I'm doing homework. I start with the page on the Boston Tea Party just to make sure I've got the real web. Then I carefully type the letters into the Google search box. ARTHOMWGEN. There's nothing. Actually, there's quite a lot, but all the results come back with the word arthritis. In other words, Google can't figure this out any better than we can. Garbage in, garbage out. Undaunted, I do a search for Osiris. It churns up millions of hits, not just for the Egyptian god, but for a shoe company, a health club, a hotel, a rock band, and hundreds of other businesses with Osiris in their name. There's even a New York City delicatessen with a specialty sandwich called the Osiris, roast lamb on pita topped with hummus in the shape of a pyramid. But when I add the parameter Serenity, New Mexico, the results go from all that to zero, which means the worlds of Serenity and Osiris never intersect, except in that one conference room even Google doesn't know about. Frustrated, I delete Sirius and search for Serenity on its own. That's when I make an astonishing discovery. There is no such company as the Serenity Plastic Works. How is that possible? I mean, the traffic cone thing is obviously a sham, but how can you overlook a giant building? What does Google think that is, a speed bump? Real or not, the factory is the center of a whole town. I'm typing faster now, propelled by the liquid nitrogen pumping through my veins. There's also no Serenity Cable Company, no Serenity Channel 1, no Daily Pax newspaper. I set down my iPad. I don't want to continue. I sense that something is coming at me like a runaway train, and whatever it is, I'm not going to have the strength to handle it. I attempted to sprint home and throw what I've just learned into my father's face, but of course that's not an option. What then? The answer is to push forward and to try to find an explanation for this. I rerun my Google search for Sirius. There are so many hits, more than 6 million. I feel like I'm swimming in web links, struggling to stay afloat. There's no way I could even go through all these sites in one lifetime, not even if the others help me. There must be some way to narrow this down. I add other words: kids, study. There's no question that we're being studied. Behavior. That's part of it somehow. This pares the 6 million option down to a mere 80,000. To say I'm discouraged doesn't begin to describe it. I'll never sift through it all, but I jump in hoping something will catch my eye. Most of the links fall into two categories: study guides for children learning about Egyptian mythology, or podiatrist studies on the Sirius brand shoes. And then a word jumps out at me that has nothing to do with either mythology or shoes. It's instantly familiar that at first I have trouble placing it. Hammerstrom. The guy from the Purple People Eaters? Why would he come up? And then my heart begins to beat a little faster. A connection between Sirius and the Purples is a connection between Sirius and Serenity. This has to be important. I click on the link, and a long document appears on my screen in font that reminds me of an old-fashioned typewriter. Project Sirius. Project Sirius was a top-secret experiment in human behavior proposed by social scientist Dr. Felix Hammerstrom and internet billionaire Tamara Dunleavy in the late 1990s. Felix Hammerstrom? Dr. Felix Hammerstrom, the social scientist? My mind races back to the moment when the surety took me off the chopper. Yes, Mr. Hammerstrom. Those words weren't directed at the Purples. They were meant for my father. It was Dad who told me the name belonged to one of the rescue team. I believed him because, well, why would he lie? Between then and now, though, he's lied at least 20 times. He's tried to wipe the truth out of my memory using brainwashing and pills. And now I'm staring at proof positive that he's one of the people behind this project Sirius, whatever it is. I want to say I can't believe it, but I believe it all too easily. My own father, and I don't even know his real name. I turn my attention back to the screen. Sirius was designed to explore the concept of criminality from perspective of nature versus nurture, i.e., is an individual born evil, or does he or she become evil through the influence of environment and experience? The results were expected to revolutionize our thinking with regard to the court and penal systems and change crime and punishment as we know it. The proposed experiment involved human cloning, the medical process of creating exact genetic twins of living people through the harvesting of their DNA. Under Sirius, clones could be created of the greatest criminal masterminds currently in prison. The babies would be raised by surrogate parents in a fabricated community, geographically isolated and carefully protected from any exposure to illegality, violence, deception, and fraud. These subject children would be exact replicas of the very worst in human society, yet they would be free of all negative influence. Careful monitoring would reveal whether the clones have fulfilled the destiny of the evil in their DNA, or if their decent and upright environment has nurtured gentle, law-abiding adults. While initially hailed for its scientific approach to social issues, Project Sirius was criticized for its callous use of human life for research purposes and for its lack of endgame. The plan referred to a possible shift in experimental protocols once the cloned subjects reached 14 years of age, but few details were provided on what would happen beyond then. These concerns, along with the international ban on human cloning, led to the abandonment of Project Osiris in 1999. Dr. Hammerstrom resigned from the faculty of the University of Colorado and dropped out of sight. Tamara Dunleavy went into retirement and now lives in seclusion in a ranch outside of Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I'm as calm as I've ever been because I know that's because I can't wrap my mind around what I've just seen. I'm tempted to dismiss it all as crazy, except that piece by piece, every element snaps into place like a jigsaw puzzle. Felix Hammerstrom, Felix Frieden, a fabricated, isolated community, serenity, streets with names like Fellowship, Harmony, Amity, Unity. I read the article again and again until it's practically engraved on the inside of my skull casing. It's all true. It has to be. Every word of it. Except for one thing. Project Osiris was never abandoned. Felix Hammerstrom changed his name and went ahead and did it in place so far off the grid that no one would ever find out about it. Project Osiris is us. Chapter 17, Hector Amani. I understand now. It all makes sense to me. Way back when I was a toddler in the sandbox, when I had that near miss with the rattlesnake, I finally understood my mother's words to my father. You know how valuable he is. It wasn't a mother's unconditional love for her baby. I'm not her baby. I'm nobody's baby. I'm not even human. Well, technically, clones still count as human. Our bodies have the same vital organs, blood, tissue, and bone as real people. We eat, drink, sleep, and go to the bathroom just like everybody else. No, when she said valuable, she meant exactly that. There are only 10 others like me in the entire world. Not just human clones, but clones of criminal masterminds. That might be the hardest part of all to accept. I'm pretty smart and get good grades, but I don't feel like a mastermind. It makes me think of some kind of warped evil genius type trying to take control of the world. Come to think of it, I wouldn't mind being a little more in control. Not of the whole world, just my little part of it, especially where mom and dad are concerned. And maybe Malik. Now, Malik, I can see as a mastermind. It's a pretty crazy thing for anybody to learn about himself. And craziest of all is what we still don't know. Yes, we're cloned from criminal masterminds, but which ones? Who are these arch lawbreakers who are our exact genetic matches? We are all shocked when Eli gives us the news that we are clones, but I'm slightly less shocked than the others. I always sense that I'm a little bit less than a person. Not quite good enough, or brave enough, or handsome enough to make the cut. I never suspected I was created in a lab like a space-age plastic or a revolutionary new zit cream. But those are just details. Eli takes us out by the factory so we can read the article for ourselves. The story is a lot less science fiction than I expect. We all started out as cells in test tubes, but everything was kind of normal after that. We were placed inside host mothers for 9 months, and they were born in the regular way. Our Serenity parents, the mom and dads we grew up with, are scientists working on Project Osiris. The non-special kids in town aren't clones like us. They are natural children of other people attached to the experiment. I should have known, Tori whispers. When I was working on the mural, it was so obvious. There were family resemblance for some of the kids, but not us. Considering the huge asteroid strike we've all experienced, our reaction is pretty quiet. There are a few tears, but mostly we're too dazed to cries. There's so much to swallow. Our parents aren't our parents. We don't have parents. Our entire lives are an experiment. Eli's had the most time to get used to it, but he's almost the most devastated of the four of us. His father is the head of the whole thing. Him and that billionaire lady who doesn't seem to be part of it anymore. Who says we don't have a family resemblance, Malik mumbles. Just not to our so-called parents. I wonder who I look like. Adolf Hitler, probably. Eli shakes his head. We can't be cloned from famous criminals from a long time back. The people we come from are still alive. At least they were when we were. his mouth twist. Maid. Tori covers her face with her hand. I can't believe we're criminals. I can only imagine the terrible things we must have done. Stop right there, Eli orders. We haven't done anything. Even if we were exact doubles of people who committed crimes, we're innocent. Don't ever forget that. Well, that was the whole purpose of the experiment I put in. To prove that we can be good even though we're clones of bad people. Well, that makes me feel so much better, Malik says sarcastically. I'm a freak, but I can be a good freak. We're only 4 of 11 clones, Tori moans. How can we tell the others? It's a point. There are 7 other or serious clones in town who have no idea who they are. Do we tell the others at all? I amend Tori's questions. No way, Malik says quickly. They're the same as us, Eli reasons. They have a right to know. Malik is adamant. Half of them will think we're crazy, and the other half will freak out and blab. At least I have to tell Amber, Tori reasons. She's my best friend. She's the last person you tell, Malik argues. She thinks Happy Valley is Shangri-La-D. She'd never accept the perfect life is really a sick experiment, courtesy of our loving families. She'll go straight to her parents to be reassured that God's in heaven and all's right with the world. And then Project or Sirius will know we know, which might ruin their research. You'll notice that webpage doesn't mention what happens to us if we get contaminated by too much information. I don't like the sound of that. Malik, it never occurred to me that our parents might try to harm us, but maybe that's because I've grown up here. In the real world, people harm each other every day. After all, what's the purpose of the purple people eaters? Not to protect a factory that isn't a factory, or to keep order in the town that's already 100% orderly. You don't think that? I shudder. Because we were made, we can be, unmade? You mean killed, Malik says bitterly. Can't happen. Ever notice there's no cemetery in Happy Valley? Come to think of it, what have we been doing with dead people since 1937? Eating them? Stop it, Tori pleads. There was never any 1937 for Serenity. They built it for us. And when our Sirius is over, Serenity will probably disappear. Or Sirius is already over, Eli amends. Once you know you're an experiment, it's not an experiment anymore. Great, Malik comments. The whole purpose behind our lives just expired. He has a knack for cutting right to the heart of the matter. Eli shakes his head. Their purpose for us might be gone, but our whole lives are still ahead of us. I don't know about you guys, but I intend to live mine. Well, good luck selling dear old dad on that one, Malik drawls. I've never been the happiest kid in town, and the fact that my parents are really scientists explains some of it, but not all. The Brutals, the Prittles, and the Laskas, they're researchers too, the same as my folks. Yet they've been parents in a way mine never have been. Even an experiment needs to be loved. We'll leave, I say suddenly. Yeah, right, snorts Malik. Seriously, I insist. You're always talking about leaving Serenity because it's so boring. Well, that's exactly what we'll be doing. We'll just be doing it sooner. They stare at me. Malik is uncertainty, Tori in amazement. It takes me a moment to decipher Eli's expression. It's something I'm not used to. Respect. For the first time in my life, I'm leading and not following. Hector's right, he says. We're never going to be free of Sirius until we get out of this place. But we're just kids, Tori protests. We're in the middle of nowhere, and there are only 4 of us compared with the close to 200 who are going to try to stop us. It won't be easy, Eli concedes, but if we got into the factory, we can do this. With careful planning, it can be done. It's nothing like the factory, Tori exclaims, her voice cracking a little. That was 3 hours. This is forever. Maybe they aren't my parents in the usual way, but they're still my parents. Even if they lied to me, that doesn't mean I never want to see them again. Malik studies his sneakers. He's hoping nobody notices, but the sun catches his eyes and there's moist. He's always complaining about how his mom babied him and how embarrassed he is by his dad. Still, the idea of leaving them has him pretty shaken up. Aloud, he says, count me in. If Hector's got the guts, so do I. I'm floored. Malik is the strong one, and here he is looking to me for courage. I realize that I have less to lose than he does. I have a comfortable life with 2 researchers acting as my mother and father. He has a family. I can't leave my parents, Tori barely whispers. We don't have parents, Malik informs us. We have zookeepers. It hurts to hear it, even for me. My mom and dad should be the easiest to walk away from, but it doesn't work that way. They're not our real parents, but they're the only ones we've ever known. Oh, wow, that was really 2 chapters of heavy information. Oh, I don't know about you guys, but I need to digest all of that before I move on. I hope your book club conversations are going to be awesome after these 2 chapters. Be well, Rockets.